Hello from wherever you're watching us in Kenya and around the world. This is KBC Prime Edition coming to you live right here at the Broadcasting House along Harry Thuku Road in Nairobi. Good evening. Tonight we've lined up stories for you, including the day's business and later on the day's sports. But first things first, let's take a summary view of what to expect, starting right now. President William Ruto cracks the whip on troubled cancer, sends health PS Dr. Josephine Mburu, Cancer Board and Chief Executive Officer packing. Televangelist Ezekiel Odero's bid to unfreeze his bank accounts and reopen his TV station flops. Former Treasury Permanent Secretary Kamau Thuga nominated as Central Bank Governor. And in sports, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania moot a joint bid to host the 2027 African Cup of Nations. Thank you very much for making time to be with us. My name is Mboya. Our sign language tonight is Lucy Mwaura. Our socials at KBC Channel 1 and my Twitter handle at Tomboya24. Let's start this live broadcast with our lead story. Dr. Josephine Mburu, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Public Health, becomes the first high-ranking official in the Kenya Kwanza administration to be kicked out by President William Samoei Ruto. Dr. Mburu was fired alongside the entire board of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA if you like, in connection with the expenditure of the Global Fund in regards to the National Malaria Program targeting low-income households in the malaria endemic areas. Irungu Nyakera takes over as the new board chairperson of the troubled KEMSA. That story opening our coverage tonight.
Dr. Josephine Jerry Mburu Wahogo, being called on to exercise the functions of Principal Secretary.
Dr. Josephine Mburu, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Public Health, has become the first top government official in the Kenya Kwanza administration to be shown the door by President William Ruto. The sacking, according to a statement released by the head of Public Service, Felix Koskei, is linked to the expenditure of Global Fund on the National Malaria Program targeting low-income households. Dr. Andrew Mutava has been appointed as acting CEO of KEMSA, taking over from suspended CEO Terry Ramadan. The entire KEMSA board has also been kicked out, and Hezron Onyeku Omolo, Bernard Kipruik Bet, Dr. Jane Masinga and Jane Nyangatui Mbatia have been appointed new board members. The sacking follows a promise by the head of state in a TV interview on Sunday night to crack the whip and streamline the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority.
You will see results.
Mr. President,
I want to give you my commitment. I will clean up cancer. Whatever it takes.
Mr. President,
whatever it costs, I will clean it up.
The head of state underscored his commitment to entrenching ethos of good governance by promoting accountability and openness in management of public affairs. The president reiterating committing to a new era in the management of the nation's health care by ensuring that no Kenyan is denied the dignity of affordable medical care due to corruption. The head of state promising his administration will spare no effort in rebuilding KEMSA's supply chain management system to ensure efficacy and accountability in the provision of medical supplies across the country. For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troy-Njue.
Former National Treasury Principal Secretary Dr. Kamau Thuga has been nominated as the 10th Governor of the Central Banks of Kenya, the Apex Bank, to take over from Dr. Patrick Njoroge, whose tenure ends next month. Dr. Thuga, who is an economist, has served in senior roles within fiscal, monetary and economic policy, making positions both locally as well as on the global front, and has been serving as a senior advisor and the head of fiscal and budget policy within the presidency, and is a member of the President's Economic Council. The incoming central bank governor was interviewed for the post alongside Dorcas Mutonyi, Haron Sirima, Edward Sambili, Nancy Onyango, and Aiden Mohammed. President Ruto has transmitted Dr. Thuga's nomination to the National Assembly for consideration as set out within the constitutional framework. Kenya and Somalia will reopen their borders after 12 years of closure. The countries have also agreed to ease visa restrictions and address the common security challenges facing the region. The border points in Mandera, Kiungu, as well as Ras Kamboni were shut over runaway insecurity. Here is that story.
Kenya and Somalia will in the next 90 days embark on a three-phase reopening of their borders to ease movement of people and goods. The countries have for more than a decade kept their borders in Mandera, Kiunga and Ras Kamboni shut. But a deal has been struck to restart cross-border movement, and with it comes the easing of restrictions on visa applications for citizens of the two East African neighbors.
We are also in the process of relooking at a possibility of also adding a fourth border point, which will give an entry point into Somalia from the Kenyan side in Wajir County.
By working together and leveraging our historical, linguistic, and bilateral ties between our two countries, citizens of both Somalia and Kenya can enjoy enhanced food security, improved infrastructure, increased exchange of goods and services, and overall sustainable, long-lasting peace.
On Monday, a high-level engagement between the governments of the two countries also resolved to pursue common interest in matters security.
Deliberations noted the need to enhance cooperation and partnership between our two brotherly neighboring countries, purpose to address the challenges to foster regional integration.
The cross-border challenges experienced by communities on both sides of the common border are too complex for one country to address. Borderlands communities face numerous challenges, including insecurity, recurrent droughts, human trafficking, illegal trade, and transnational crimes.
The latest diplomatic breakthrough is one among a series of attempts to repair relations between the two countries in the last decade.
Sana ile border tunahitaji sana ni ya Somalia. Shauri sasa barabara imefunguka. Huko bani ya Kenya, Nairobi vitu yatoka ni kidogo. Ile vitu tunategemea sana ni kitu somo kutoka Somalia.
Watufungulie border angalau tupate sukari zishuke, unga zishuke, chakula yote ishuke.
Though Kenya and Somalia have to some extent read from the same script in the war against the Al-Shabaab, border and maritime disputes have occasionally threatened to drive a wedge between the neighbors. Yusufar reporting for Prime Edition.
Now, the High Court in Mombasa has dismissed applications that were being sought by televangelist Pastor Ezekiel Odero's lawyers to unfreeze over 15 bank accounts and have his television channel reopened. Last Monday, the Director of Criminal Investigations obtained orders from the Milimani Magistrates Court to be allowed to investigate the accounts by Pastor Ezekiel, his church, as well as the Kilifi International School over alleged money laundering. Here's that report.
Once again, the battery of lawyers representing televangelist Ezekiel Odero appeared in court to listen to the ruling. In the application dated 8th May 2023, Pastor Ezekiel had also urged the Mombasa High Court to bring the case from Nairobi to Mombasa, arguing that a High Court exercises supervisory jurisdiction over all subordinate courts. Judge Olga Sewe ruled that her court cannot usurp supervisory powers over a court in Nairobi, which is out of her jurisdiction. She added that the second application is entirely misconceived and therefore unattainable and should be sought from Milimani courts.
That other than prayer G, the rest of the petitioner's prayers in the notice of motion dated 3rd May 2023 fail and are hereby dismissed with no order as to costs. B, the second application dated 8th May 2023 being misconceived is hereby struck out with no order as to costs. So that is my decision.
Itabidi turudi Nairobi sababu mahakama ya Mombasa haina jurisdiction ya kusikiza mambo ambayo yalifanyika Nairobi. Kwa hivyo mwendo wa saa 8 tutakuwa jijini Nairobi kushughulikia katika mahakama kuu.
Pastor Ezekiel had also filed another application dated 3rd May 2023, seeking to stop the Communications Authority of Kenya from suspending the World Televangelism TV that is operated by the church. Lady Justice Sewe, however, threw out the application, saying that Pastor Ezekiel had failed to exhaust all laid down legal channels in matters concerning the issuance of TV licenses. Justice Sewe said the state had proved before the court that the church had not been denied the rights to worship and that the deployment of security did not amount to the denial of rights.
You have 7 days to effect the amendment. So you will still maintain the 14 days. You work on your response. Upon being served within 7 days, you still will be able to respond within 14 days. So those timelines are maintained. So that means the responses will only be filed after service of them.
Tunarudi kwa CCK leo pia kuwaambia kwamba uamuzi wa mahakama unaonyesha kwamba ilani yenu ilikuwa ni tisho la kuweza kucomply, na sababu wamecomply,
they have no reason to stop the transmission. It's the same thing, it's the same church, it's the same words. Nothing changes because it has gone on TV. So wafungue tu.
The matter will be coming up for mention on May 29th. For Prime Edition from Mombasa County, I am Anboro.
Straight into the corridors of justice now. 2 businessmen have denied 20 counts of land fraud and have been released on a cash bail of 400,000 shillings and a surety of a similar amount. The duo was on Monday put on the dock for conspiring to defraud the National Hospital Insurance Fund of a parcel of land valued at 1.5 billion big ones. It is alleged that the two forged a title deed purporting to be a genuine document issued by the Ministry of Lands.
Peter David Leparako and Frederick Kimemia Kimani before Chief Magistrate Lucas Onyena. The two denied 2 counts of land fraud. At the center of the matter is a 9.25 hectare piece of land situated in Karen, Nairobi, worth 1.5 billion shillings belonging to NHIF.
And Sons Limited, Peter David Leparako, William Asikweli.
According to the charge sheet, Leparako and Kimani, with others not present in court, forged a land title deed. They purported it to be a genuine document issued by the chief land registrar in the ministry, allocating the land to Peter Leparakwa.
Na cheti cha usajili ya kampuni yenye nambari C35825. Frederick Kimani, William Asikweli.
The accused, through their lawyers, told the court they have been charged on offences that have not been properly investigated.
I am proposing, Your Honor, that you kindly release the first accused person on a cash bail of 100,000. That will be able to afford. As you look at it, he's a very old man.
They argued that the second accused person, Kimani, was charged with similar offences last year, but the Director of Public Prosecutions withdrew the charge.
It is less than 1 month since the charges were withdrawn. Under Section 87A of the Criminal Procedure Code.
However, the state prosecutor Sam Wamocha told the court such withdrawal does not bar fresh charges from being introduced.
There is no allegation that the second accused failed to attend court in that other case prior to its withdrawal. In the circumstances, I consider the following bail terms reasonable.
The court granted the two a cash bail of 400,000 shillings each and sureties of the same amount. The mention to set the prior trial date has been set for 29th May 2023. For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troenjue.
And we'll be following that story for you. It brings us to our first break right here on Prime Edition. Don't go away. We'll be back with much more. Stay tuned.
What am I forgetting? Nini, workers paid, rent checked, mlango locked, visiting notice, goza mzazi nilitoa jana la internet sorted. What is it? What am I forgetting?
Nini, nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Unaweza shinda hadi milioni 2 kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number, weka 757070. Account number, weka neno Loto. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa, kisha subiri draw. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLP.
Colgate Herbal is formulated from a unique blend of natural herbs and is scientifically proven to strengthen teeth and keep gums healthy. Try Colgate Herbal, scientifically proven for strong teeth and healthy gums.
Welcome to Take on Tech. This is the show that keeps you updated on everything you need to know about technology.
First of all, the women that are already in tech should be empowered.
I've actually studied electrical and electronics engineering, telecommunications option. So basically I'm in the tech sector.
The government should empower the girl child in a way that they should venture so much into ICT.
There's never a dull moment with us. Tune in every Monday from 10:30 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Kwa majina naitwa Francis Otieno. Nimetoka pale Kayole, Matopeni hapo Spring Valley. Nimekuwa nikicheza loto na kama jinsi ambavyo mumeona siku ya leo nimekuwa mmoja wa washindi. Ninaweza penda kuwahimiza Loto Moto ni ukweli, jaribu hata wewe. Inaweza kuwa siku yako imefika kama vile yangu imefika.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number, weka 757070. Account number, andika neno Loto. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa, kisha subiri draw.
Welcome back to Prime Edition. Daniel Wahome is on standby, coming up a little later on with the day's sports. And we'll also be bringing you the day's business. Now, 6 people lost their lives Monday in 2 separate road accidents in 2 counties. 5 of those people perished after a 14-seater matatu lost control at the Sachangwan, that's located along the Nakuru-Eldoret highway. Miles away, 1 person died in a motorcycle accident along the Kisii-Kilgoris highway. Here's that report.
According to Molo Sub-County Police Commander Mwenda Mudhamia, the ill-fated matatu veered off the Nakuru-Eldoret highway, landing in a ditch. 5 people lost their lives in the 2 a.m. accident, while 6 adults and 2 children are nursing injuries. Mudhamia urged motorists to be cautious along the highway that has several marked black spots.
Uwe unaendesha lori, uwe ni pikipiki, uwe ni gari ya abiria, tafadhali uchukue tahadhari ili ukaweze kuzuia maisha isipotee.
Bodies of the deceased were taken to Molo Sub-County Hospital, mortuary awaiting postmortem and identification. Meanwhile, a pillion passenger died instantly in a motorcycle accident along the Kisii-Kilgoris Road in Bomachoge. The deceased, identified as 22-year-old Desmond Mokebo, was a second passenger in the ill-fated motorcycle. Witnesses say the rider tried to overtake a sand-faring truck, but instead rammed into the truck side to avoid a head-on collision.
Alikuwa na spidi ya juu, akaingia katika hiyo lori ya mchanga nyuma. Ndio hiyo walikuwa watatu kwa hiyo pikipiki.
Area residents have petitioned the county government to put up bumps on this section of the road to minimize accidents. Sarafina Nairobi for Prime Edition.
Consensus on the route to follow continues to elude the bipartisan committee for the 2nd week running. Monday, representatives from the ruling Kenya Kwanza and those of opposition Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition were holed up in a closed-door meeting at the Bomas of Kenya, mulling over the best approach for the talks. In the course of the day, both parties retreated for consultations separately before reconvening to chart the way forward. Kenya Kwanza wants parliamentary talks, while Azimio, on the other hand, wants an extra parliamentary approach. Remember, on Thursday of last week, the bipartisan committee ruled out the presidential gazettement route in the negotiations. The 14-member committee is co-chaired by Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo and his Tharaka counterpart George Murugara. Cooperatives and Micro and Small Enterprise Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui has decried inadequate funding of the ministry in the proposed budget for the 2023-2024. Appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Trade and Cooperatives, Chelugui indicated the ministry required an extra 49 billion shillings to the proposed allocation of 15 billion shillings. The committee, however, wants the executive to amalgamate various value chains in the ministry so as to reduce the duplication and the cost element.
The Cooperatives and Micro and Small Enterprise Ministry is concerned that inadequate funding in the 2023-2024 budget might affect its programs such as priority value chains, mobilization and aggregation of micro, small and medium enterprises, as well as growth of cooperatives.
For sure, if we are honest and in dealing with this issue of bottom-up economic transformation agenda, then it is time for us to make a statement in how much we allocate this sector.
CS Simon Chelugui lobbied the National Assembly Trade Committee to push for increased budgetary allocation for the ministry from the proposed 15 billion shillings to 64 billion shillings. The ministry has aligned its estimates for 2023-2024 to priority value chains, including leather products, dairy products, edible oils, and construction and building materials.
For us here is to facilitate that process, to enterprise the whole value chain. So we need to put in, and why we are requesting for more, for increased funding, is because we are not just focusing on the product, because the product is as good as the process. If the process is not promising, the product will not be promising as well.
The committee, however, wants the executive to consolidate the various value chains in ministries to reduce duplication and cost.
The budget depends on the series, so it's very hard at this point to assure them that at least they can get enough that they want. You have like 5 ministries which are dealing with the same component. Maybe it is cotton. You realize that agriculture is dealing with the cotton, cooperative is dealing with the cotton, another entity, Rivertex, is dealing with the cotton. So, but if you can align these resources into one component, you will be able to manage and you will be able also to oversight, and at least to get the result is easier.
Elsewhere, Water and Irrigation Ministry is seeking an additional 100 million shillings to revive the stalled construction of Korusoin and Uma dams in Kisumu and Kitui counties, respectively. Water Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome urged the National Assembly Blue Economy and Water Committee to enhance budgetary allocation for the ministry so that stalled projects can be revived. Gishoki Washira, Prime Edition.
Now, a section of women in the great county of Meru held demonstrations to protest against the sentiments made by Tigania East Member of Parliament Mpuru Aburi, criticizing Governor Kawera Mwangaza's style of leadership. Led by Patron Maendeleo ya Wanawake Meru Chapter Mary Kanana Ntere, they termed the remarks as an affront to the women. The women marched from Kinoru Stadium all the way to Nterere Market, and the reason was to express their displeasure. They demanded respect for the governor's office. They issued a 7-day ultimatum for the legislator to apologize or else.
tukiangalia kama Wameru tunaona ina promote gender based violence. Na kama akina mama wa Kimeru tumekataa matamshi ya mporo, na tunasema hakuna mtu mwingine yeyote atasimama tena Meru County kutusi akina mama wa Kimeru. Na saa hii tunauliza Njuri Ncheke iko wapi? Mbona hii yeita mporo wakati na yeye chini wamfundisha Kimeru? Sababu mama Mmeru ambaye amezaa watoto kiume na kike anastahili kupewa heshima.
Amani, wachaneni na Kawera. Ogopeni Mungu, mwanamke afanye kazi yake. Ili anasikia anaweza kufanya, afanyie watoto, afanyie wajukuu. Kwanza wale wenye kuitwa sasa, mimi nimesimama hapa ni wajukuu wangu. Hakuna mtoto wangu hata moja yuko kazi.
Naomba hivi na kunyenyekea. Kawera amesomesha watoto, amepeana basari Meru mzima yote. Kawera ni mtu ametutengenezea barabara, ameshimba bwao mingi yenye hatujai kuona hata former governors. Hakuna kazi wamefanya kama ile Kawera amefanya. Baada ya 3 months ile Kawera amepata peace wakiwa na MCA wake.
Kuna bibi, akona wasichana na afai kutoa matamusi kama hiyo ametoa.
That's how things went down. Now, physical abuse by parents is the most common form of violence against children in this country. Labor and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Florence Bore said that it is for this reason that government has developed the National Positive Parenting Guidelines. Why? To ensure that caregivers have a nurturing relationship with their children. Let's listen in to that important story.
As Kenya joined the world in marking the International Day of Families, the government has expressed concern over the burden families bear, occasioned by drought, poverty, and the COVID pandemic.
The reason that we have strict children to take have fathers and mothers to have strict children, but I support what I say. Next year we should be, as we look forward to this day, next year, we should be looking for solutions in 2023.
Labor and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Florence Bore regretted that children were increasingly being subjected to physical abuse by parents and caregivers. She called for a multi-sectoral approach to ensure positive parenting, where caregivers have a nurturing relationship with their children.
Comfort with mind of emerging issues requires a shift in approach from that of our time.
Beatrice Ogutu, a director of investing in children and their societies, which is one of the implementing agencies, said following the piloting of the program in Garissa and Kilifi, it will now be implemented in 41 counties.
This program not only looks at how parents can raise their children well, but it also looks at opportunities to support parents to address their own challenges, their own concerns as relates to their own relationships, how they manage conflicts, and how they address issues of violence.
Tilio Marco for Prime Edition.
To get Skizatune Hail Mary, dial star 811 star 963 hash.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
To get Hail Mary, dial star 811 star 963 hash, star 811 star 963 hash.
Biggest odds in the world every day on selected matches. Make a decision. Mozart Bet.
Welcome to Take on Tech. This is the show that keeps you updated on everything you need to know about technology.
First of all, the women that are already in tech should be empowered.
I've actually studied electrical and electronics engineering, telecommunications option. So basically I'm in the tech sector.
The government should empower the girl child in a way that they should venture so much into ICT.
There's never a dull moment with us. Tune in every Monday from 10:30 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back to KBC Prime Edition, our socials at KBC Channel 1 and my Twitter handle, if you wanna, at Mboya24. Now, let's cross over to the city of Kisumu, where a family of a 25-year-old woman who died while she was waiting for treatment at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisumu County has now exonerated the doctors at the hospital of negligence. The family claims that the death of the mother of one was one under the will of God spectra, and that doctors at that hospital did all they could to save her life. They spoke in the wake of a video. There's a video that's going round and it's gone viral on the social media where you see individuals perceived to be members of the family of the deceased alongside curious onlookers, wailing and accusing the hospital of all manner of things, including negligence. Achola Simon was there and filed this report.
Distressing scenes were witnessed at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisumu County on Sunday evening. A distraught mother watching helplessly as life ebbs away from her daughter. This is evident from a video that we can't verify was indeed shot at the casualty area of the hospital. A voice of a man speaking in Dholuo is heard accusing the doctors of negligence and failing to act fast and save the life of the 25-year-old woman.
Hospital should be disbanded and everybody should go home.
The family of the mother of one has now come out and exonerated the hospital of any negligence.
There was chest pain, which is pneumonia pain, and stomach. The time she was dismissed, she was in doctor hand, but I don't see the negligence of our doctors in the hospital. It's the work of God.
The hospital management is also discounting claims in the video that the woman was expectant.
She was too sick to get the second test, which is an X-ray, and she was taken back to casualty just to try and stabilize her. And unfortunately, she died when being stabilized, and the resuscitation did not work.
According to the hospital management, the patient was referred to the hospital from Chulaimbo Sub-County Hospital. She arrived at the hospital aboard the county ambulance at around 2 p.m. on Sunday. Several tests were done to ascertain her ailment. Thereafter, she was then wheeled back to the casualty area as she awaited further tests. The hospital management has launched investigations into the motive behind the shooting of the video and posting it on social media.
There is no cause of alarm. Whoever took the video, we do not know. They are not associated with the family. The family does not know them. Whatever intent they had for that video to shout around and take videos of people who are getting treated without their consent, I think was even a wrong thing. And we're going to look into that so that in future nobody is able to take videos of patients inside the facilities.
The family members who are right here said categorically that they were not with those people who were making noise on the video. Those people came in from nowhere and were making noise in the emergency department, but were not part of their team.
A post-mortem is yet to be done on the body of the deceased to ascertain the true cause of her demise. Achola Simon, Prime Edition, Kisumu County.
All right, it's now time for the weekly feature program, The Cabinet. And tonight, in focus, is a man who served in 2 ministries during his 5-year term as a member of parliament. Tonight on the Cabinet, we focus on George Mutua Ndoto, who was considered one of President Daniel Arap Moi's point men in Ukambani area at the height of the clamor for the return of the multi-party politics in Kenya in the late 1980s.
George Mutua Ndoto was born in 1945 into a staunch Catholic family in Mulutu village in Kitui County. With intent on entering the priesthood, Mutua joined Mwingi Seminary Secondary School after his primary school studies and eventually abandoned his priesthood dreams after completing O-levels. He later joined Nyeri High School for his A-level studies and later proceeded to the University of Nairobi in 1971 to pursue a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science. Ndoto joined the public service as a district officer in Pumwani Division of Nairobi and rose through the ranks in the provincial administration, but later joined the Ministry of Finance as Director of External Trade. It was in this role that he showed an interest in politics with key focus on his home-based Kitui Central constituency. In the general election of 1988, Ndoto was elected to represent Kitui Central in Parliament on a KANU party ticket. After his election, he was then appointed to the cabinet as Arid and Semi-Arid Land First Minister, and later he was to become KANU Kitui Branch Chairman. In 1990, during a cabinet reshuffle, President Moi moved Ndoto to the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology. In 1992, however, Ndoto became one of the many victims of emergent political wind of change that swept through the country, brought about by the clamor for multi-party politics, and lost his Kitui Central seat to Charity Ngilu, who vied on a Democratic Party ticket. In an attempt at political damage control, Ndoto was nominated as an MP between 1992 and 1997. After completing his term as a nominated MP, Ndoto went under the radar. In 2013 general election, he successfully contested the position of Speaker of Kitui County Assembly. In the 2017 general election, through Wiper Democratic Movement, Ndoto was re-elected as Speaker of the County Assembly, stamping his authority on the devolved political space. Jacqueline Masharia for the Cabinet.
What am I forgetting? Nini, workers paid, rent checked, mlango locked, visiting notices, nguo za mzazi zilitoa jana long, internet sorted. What is it? What am I forgetting?
Nini, nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Unaweza shinda hadi milioni 2 kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number, weka 757070. Account number, weka neno Loto. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa kisha subiri draw. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLP.
After the dust settled on rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are waiting for elected leaders to deliver on their pledges.
Have you used the hustler fund?
When your children sleep hungry, when you can borrow 500 or 1,000 shillings and they have some food on the table.
So the 500 you're giving me now is my purchasing power has literally been diminished comparing to probably even January or December.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
In terms of the amount of money that is being disbursed, the minimum being 500 shillings, how do you scorecard that? No, that I'll give it a 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5.
1 out of 5?
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. Let's now take a look at the day's business, and I'm holding the fort for the business news anchor. We begin with the lead story in the business segments. The Apex Bank, central bank governors from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development region are proposing a harmonization of remittances policies to promote trade and deepen financial markets. According to experts, the region has one of the highest, by the way, remittance costs in the world. Stands at 8.9% compared, if you do a comparative analysis, to the global average of 6.5%, which is nearly 3 times the Sustainable Development Goals target rate of below 3%.
Diaspora remittance has become a major economic driver in Africa, with World Bank saying that in 2022, remittances to low and middle-income countries grew by an estimated 5% to hit $626 billion. Despite the immense growth in the last 10 years, high transaction costs and a complicated transfer process are stifling growth. The World Bank says the average cost of remitting $200 to sub-Saharan Africa was 7.8% in 2022 compared to global average for low and middle-income countries.
This means that it costs more for us to send money among ourselves than it costs for our diaspora brothers and sisters to send to us.
Central bank governors from the region are meeting in Nairobi for 2 days to discuss various ways of lowering intra-regional transaction costs. The governors say persons transferring funds across borders rely on a network of banks to coordinate the transactions, which in many cases must go through a more liquid currency, increasing vulnerability to exchange rate fluctuations.
When no criminal activity is involved, informal channels mean that governments don't have the true picture of foreign currencies flowing into or out of their own countries. This often makes the balance of payments appear less favorable than it actually is and lowers sovereign credit ratings in some instances.
The bankers say the region lacks a common policy on standards for key payment technologies, among other challenges. The delegates also opine that harmonization of remittance policies will lead to lower cost of sending money and increased transparency and accountability in the remittance market.
But the point here is that we have to harmonize on the basis of best practices. So we should not be having a race to the bottom. So think of minimum standards. The minimum standards have to be best practices. It cannot be the standard of the weakest, of the worst, of the weakest jurisdiction. It has to be the best practice.
At the national level, development of national strategies, strengthening of financial sectors, capacity building to relevant factors, administrative and legal reforms if needed.
Digital remittances could be the gateway product suites of responsive, gender-smart remittances that could be a way to tailor financial services, and that could build resilience for migrants and their families.
The central bankers are expected to develop a roadmap on how to lower remittance costs in the region and boost intra-regional transactions. Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition.
A lot of action.
Kenya and Colombia have agreed to set up a joint technical committee that will help deepen bilateral ties. The team will identify areas of collaboration between the two countries. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says Kenya is seeking to tap Colombian expertise on coffee production, infrastructure development, as well as the ICT sector. The two countries have also agreed to launch direct flights, flying between Nairobi and Bogota, and the reason is to spur tourism.
Two-way trade between Kenya and Colombia is estimated to be around 430 million shillings, which is heavily tilted towards the South American nation. The most traded goods between the two nations are agricultural products and medical equipment. The Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says the two countries will explore ways of deepening trade and bilateral ties.
Our government is committed to further increase a two-way trade and investment cooperation between Kenya and Colombia by focusing on economic and commercial programs and promotion of business interactions between our two countries.
Speaking during a meeting with Colombian Vice President Francia Elena Marquez, Gachagua says Kenya is keen on increasing its shipments to the South American nation and has started talks to facilitate direct flights from Nairobi to Bogota.
Our political consultations have explored the need to establish direct flights between the two countries, which will be an enabler for trade and investment for people-to-people contact.
Talks between the two nations are set at an advanced stage, which will see Colombia offer training on education and health, among other areas, to Kenyan teachers and nurses.
Kenya wishes to enhance cooperation with Colombia in a number of fields, such as training in Spanish, education scholarships, healthcare, culture, knowledge sharing, South-South cooperation.
The DP is slated to lead a delegation to Colombia to benchmark on the best practices in traffic management and coffee production, among other areas.
More than happy to visit your beautiful country to discuss matters coffee and to learn the beautiful experiences of the Colombian coffee farmer and be able to come.
Benson Droba reporting for Prime Edition.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Now, you'll pay more for fuel over the next 1 month following the increase of pump price as a result of the higher landed cost of super petrol and the removal of subsidies on diesel as well as kerosene. The cost of super petrol goes up 3 shillings and 40 cents. Diesel has increased by 6 shillings and 40 cents, while kerosene is up by 15 shillings and 19 cents.
There were expectations that fuel prices would from this month reduce following a government-to-government deal between Kenya and the United Arab Emirates and a similar one with Saudi Arabia. The government-to-government deal was to facilitate fuel purchases using the Kenyan shilling as opposed to the previous open tender system regime where fuel was bought using dollars. In addition, Kenya was to pay for the fuel after 6 months. However, in the latest fuel review, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has revised up pump prices, noting that the landed prices of super petrol increased 8.63%, while diesel reduced to 2.51%, and kerosene was cheaper by 1.13%. In addition, the shilling appreciated 0.47% to the dollar. This, in addition to removal of subsidies on diesel and kerosene, has seen EPRA revising up pump prices. The retail cost of super petrol prices is up 3 shillings and 40 cents. Diesel has increased by 6 shillings and 40 cents, while kerosene is up by 15 shillings and 19 cents. This means fuel will be cheapest in Mombasa, where a litre of super petrol will retail at 179 shillings and 86 cents. Diesel at 165 shillings and 57 cents. Fuel is expensive in Mandera, where a litre of super petrol will retail at 195 shillings and 74 cents. Diesel at 181 shillings and 44 cents, while kerosene is retailing at 174 shillings and 16 cents. Hibak Said for Prime Edition.
And by the way, the finance bill is currently going through public participation before it is tabled and debated in Parliament. Remember, the government has plans to lower the cost of living through a raft of tax proposals and the implementation of various policies. The leader of the majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, says that the bill proposes to zero-rate maize flour and wheat to make the commodity accessible. Ichung'wah further says that bill exempts liquefied petroleum gas, LPGT, to make it more affordable and also to reduce the usage of dirty fuels. Here's that report.
The finance bill has kicked up a major public storm after it was tabled in Parliament last month. The bill has been severely opposed by various stakeholders due to its plan to raise various taxes that may burden an already burdened taxpayer. Key among them is the proposal to double fuel taxes to 16% from the current 8%. The bill has also been opposed by employers and employees due to a proposal to introduce a 3% housing levy fund to finance affordable houses. Another proposal that has caused a public uproar is the attempt to impose a withholding tax of 15% on content creators. Critics have also opposed the planned increase of turnover tax from 1% to 3%, while dropping in more micro-businesses to the tax net by lowering the entry point to cover businesses with a turnover of 500,000 annually from the previous 1 million shillings. However, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, says the bill has been crafted with the public in mind. Ichung'wah says the government plans to zero-rate LPG to lower the cost of the commodity and make it more affordable to Kenyans. The leader of the majority further says the bill seeks to revise the import declaration fee from 3.5% to 2.5% to stimulate local manufacturing by reducing the cost of inputs imported into the country. The railway development levy will also be lowered from 3.5% to 2.5% in a move to boost local manufacturing. The bill is expected to be tabled in Parliament for debate in the second week of June this year. Ndutamo Kami for Prime Edition.
Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Delight School of Fashion staged one amazing fashion show over the weekend dubbed Afrofusion.
I just want some little fun, little flex.
I am such a Nyashinsky fan, so when I keep saying Nyashinsky, just bear with me because he is the GOAT.
Every one of these artists delivered and gave their fans exactly what they came for.
This guy dropped one of the biggest, most anticipated album dubbed Lion of Sudan.
Sports News is brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Prime Edition Sport. Now, President William Ruto today unveiled a team to spearhead the drafting of a compelling joint bid for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations hosting rights by Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. The head of state said the big target to make the East African region an epicenter of regional and continental footballing resurgence.
The head of state said the bill targets to make the East African region an epicenter of regional and continental footballing resurgence.
We hope that our joint bid will motivate all our sides not only to qualify for the 2027 tournament, but also excel beyond previous achievements by our individual countries.
The president confirmed that he had consulted with Uganda and Tanzania leaders on the idea of a unified East African bid. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba was given the mandate to head and mobilize a strong team of experts to ensure the countries secure the bid.
Ababu Namwamba, the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and Arts, is duly assigned and will now mobilize his team, liaising with his counterparts in Uganda and Tanzania to formulate a winning bid so that the people of our three countries can look forward to participating in a successful 2027 tournament bid.
The Confederation of African Football (CAF) has set May 23rd as the deadline for member associations to submit their final bids. Algeria, Botswana and Egypt are also eyeing the hosting rights of the 2027 AFCON. Kenya was awarded and later on stripped of the hosting rights for the 1996 AFCON and 2018 African Nation Championships.
Now moving on is that the Kenya Ports Authority men's volleyball team lost their second match by 3-2 to JOA of Algeria at the ongoing 2023 Africa Men's Volleyball Club Championship in Tunisia. Meanwhile, the national women's rugby team tactician Dennis Wanja is set to name his final squad tomorrow ahead of the Rugby Africa Women's Cup slated for the 18th to the 29th of May in Antananarivo, Madagascar.
KPA won the first and the second set 25-23 and 31-29 respectively. The Algeria outfit came back stronger in the third and fourth set, winning 26-24 and 25-14 to send the match into fifth set, which they bagged 15-10. KPA humbled Cameroon CSV by 3-1 in the opening match. The Dockers are Kenya's sole representative after reigning Kenyan champions GSU pulled out due to financial constraints. KPA finished fifth overall in the last years of the Africa Men's Volleyball Club Championship held last year in Colombia, Tunisia. Meanwhile, national women's rugby team tactician Dennis Wanja is set to name his final squad on Tuesday ahead of the Rugby Africa Women's Cup slated for 18th to 29th May in Antananarivo, Madagascar. The runner will qualify for the third tier of the same competition, which is intended to revolutionize the women's international rugby landscape. The championship will act as springboard towards an expanded 16-team Rugby World Cup in 2025. Kenya women's rugby team Ralnesis is currently based at Kasarani Stadium in preparation for Rugby Africa Women's Cup. King Orimongi for Prime Edition Sports.
Thank you, Kingori, for that story. Now, the Sports Journalists Association of Kenya, SJAC, has renewed a one-year contract with LG Electronics East Africa for the Sports Personality of the Month award. The one-year renewable contract is valued at 3.5 million shillings.
The long-standing partnership is aimed at awarding outstanding sportsmen and women from diverse disciplines for their exemplary performance. The award also targets to develop sports in Kenya by recognizing local talents. Winners of the award will be decided by a panel of 7 judges constituted by SJAC and will receive a variety of LG products. SJAC Chairman James Waindi said the award will go a long way in motivating Kenyan sportsmen and women who have endured many challenges in the recent past due to COVID-19 pandemic.
We've made a lot of impact on several athletes. We've awarded star athletes, some like Wimbledon champion Angela Okutoi, just to name a few. The list is long, and I hope that we'll continue with this.
We, LG Electronics, made a decision to renew our partnership with SJAC, which has been successful for over 8 years. So since we kicked it off, and we have received a lot of feedback on how it already has been inspiring to the different sports the personalities.
Reporting for Prime Edition, I'm Sela Onyango.
Now, Prisons Kenya women's netball team secured a 49-47 win over Green Buffaloes of Zambia on day 3 of the East African Netball Club Championship held at the Ulinzi Complex Indoor Gymnasium. 17-3 despite a spirited fight from the Green Buffaloes. The Zambian side came back stronger to level the scores 28-28 at halftime. The two teams were tied 42-42 in the third quarter before Green Buffaloes snatched a narrow 49-47 victory.
The game was tough. We did our best, but it's not our day.
All players were good. Zambian players, Kenyan prison players, and I'm happy because we have won.
This particular East African Championship, we are very, very much encouraged. This is the first time we have ever had such a championship.
And that's the sport for tonight. Just a quick wrap on the FKF Premier League. Bidco 3-0 winners of Lindy Stars. KCB versus Sofapaka ended goalless. My name is Daniel Wahome. Back to you, Tom.
Sports News was brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Nafasi yako ya kuwa mdosi wako. Jiunge na washindi tufanye biashara. Kuwa mshindi. Mozart Bet.
All right, you know I'm the only one who calls you the Holmes.
Actually, tell him that.
And I have my reasons.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah?
Ask a question.
You know, you're a very wise guy.
No, wise guy is usually associated with a mafiosi. I'm not a mafiosi or anything.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
No, the context is different. Wise is a guy who finishes the job pretty well. Two things quickly, because we have to go. You know, the best weeks begin with Mondays. But for me, one, the mighty Kogalo goes down 2-1 to Ingwe. And then two, a friend dies in police custody. And then his body is secretly taken to a mortuary. Quickly, your thoughts on those two things.
Okay, football has got 3 results: win, draw, loss. Gor. And finally, FC Leopards win after what, 7-8 years. I mean, about somebody dying in police custody. I think the Independent Policing Oversight Authority have a job on their hands. It should not be happening in today's Kenya.
Not in 2023.
Not in 2023. Not even in 2022. Not at any one point.
Okay, so we leave it to IPOA to figure out what happened. Well, we've got to bring this to a close now. We want to thank you so much on behalf of the entire Prime Edition team for watching, including our sign language interpreter, Lucy Mwaura, and Daniel Wahome was the one who was handling the sports docket. You want to tell them good night, see them tomorrow?
See you tomorrow, same time, same place, as we take a look at the scorecard.
Okay, I'm Tom Mboya also. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night from Nairobi, Kenya. Bye-bye.